Hormazd Narielwalla's artist book, Birds of Passage, grew out of the COVID-19 lockdowns in 2019. In response to memories of Barbara Hepworth's sculpture seen in her gardens at St Ives, Narielwalla created a series of small-scale collage works on the pages of a 1906 tailoring guide by Madame G. Sheffer. Entitled Rock, Paper, Scissors, the works reference Narielwalla's own creative process and a practice that has utilised found or discarded materials relating to tailoring and pattern cutting. The patterns, which when scaled up to human body size, contrast with, but also echo, the forms of Hepworth's sculpture and her insistence on the relationship between her work and the human form. Narielwalla's partner, Kieran McGlone, created three-dimensional maquettes of the collages, using them to cast shadows in order to create a sequence of individual cyanotype prints. For Narielwalla, the cyanotypes brought to mind images of wings, reminding him of Hepworth's famous winged figure of 1961-2. He enhanced this reading by placing yellow lingerie patterns over the prints, providing depth and further texture to the original prints. As a suite of 20 works, the collage prints come together as a flock, seemingly flying across the pages of the artist's book, released as the cover is opened and the pages unfold, migrating from the book object into the sight and consciousness of the reader. For Narielwalla, the work draws on memories of his own migration from the place of his birth in Mumbai to Britain 18 years earlier. Narielwalla's move was prompted by two factors: the opportunity to explore his artistic creativity and to engage with his sexuality within a Western cultural context. This dual motivation echoes theories around the complexity of the act of migration, which can be triggered by many considerations. In Imagined Communities, political scientist Benedict Anderson notes that a national or subnational consciousness increases upon migration to a more cosmopolitan area, where individuals come across people from other subnationalisms. Anderson describes migration in terms of community, but this could equally apply to the ways in which LGBTQ+ people have, both historically and in a contemporary context, been attracted to metropolitan areas in search of like-minded people who share their sexual identities. Recent academic research has made connections between theories about diaspora and queer theory, linking ideas of identity, subject positions, migration, travel, homelands, the state, the global and the local. It's a connection with what sociologist Paul Gilroy has described as the historical and cultural mechanics of belonging in relation to multiple subject positions. Queer theorist Sarah Ahmed proposes queer as a relational process of becoming rather than an identity. Philosopher Gilles Deleuze and psychoanalyst Félix Guattari suggest the importance of becoming in stating that what is real is the becoming itself, not the supposedly fixed terms through which that which becomes passes. For Narielwalla, his work often reflects the becoming of his intersectional identity as a gay man, as a Parsi Zoroastrian, as Indian, as a British citizen, as an artist. Birds migrate for necessity to warmer climates, to find food supplies, as a survival mechanism. So birds of passage, often understood as migrants moving in search of work and better lives, relates to migration and diaspora practices, as well as to ideas of finding and becoming oneself. The idea of passage, invoked in the work's title, becomes both spatial and temporal. Narielwalla's physical passage from India to the United Kingdom is reflected in his translation of Hepworth's sculptures into collages and subsequently sculptural maquettes and cyanotype prints, which are in turn built up with lingerie patterns, themselves a tool for the creation of further developed material forms. I first became aware of Narielwalla's work over 10 years ago at London College of Fashion, where I was teaching fashion history and culture, and Narielwalla was in the throes of his doctoral research, and a common interest in menswear drew us together. From his artist book Dead Men's Patterns, which incorporated bespoke tailoring patterns, through his abstracted collage landscapes and gardens in both paper and sculptural forms, to his abstract and representational figurative works, his interest in the scale of the body, notions of identity, and the role of clothing and dress are key thematic features of his work, reminding me of Sarah Ahmed's idea that spaces extend bodies and bodies extend spaces. Birds of Passage builds both literally and metaphorically on Narielwalla's past work, through subject matter and creative process. The solid physicality of Hepworth's sculptures and Narielwalla's memories and interpretations of this work has resonance in the age of COVID, in which this work was conceived and created. The absence of bodies from physical spaces during lockdowns, the restrictions placed upon people at various times and particular locations, all resonate in both the ideas and physical manifestations of Narielwalla's Birds of Passage.